Howdy ho, howdy ho, howdy ho, ho, ho. Who's here? You gotta tell me hey and where you are. Otherwise, I feel like I'm just talking to myself. I'm defying the cliche of writers drinking either coffee or tea by drinking lemonade. So there you go. I'm outside of the box. And it's rosemary lemonade. If you've never tried rosemary lemonade, you must give it a shot. It's super, super easy. If anyone wants the recipe, I can just blurt it out. It's a simple sugar syrup of water and sugar and lemons and rosemary. It's the quantities that make the difference, but it's really good. Of course, I'm from the South, so it's probably too sweet to a lot of people. I don't know. I like it. I'm here early so everybody can have a chance to get in and tell me how their evening is. Brought to you, sponsored by Wet Hair. I definitely should put more rosemary in this one. Leisure or leisure. Oh man, Beth. Carol Beth Anderson goes by Beth. I am still working on her book, The Frost Eater. It released earlier this year, and I hopped on it so fast because I love her and her writing style. And I'm shamefully only about halfway through because I got so busy with work and other things. And that makes me really sad because I so, and there's that. And then I'm also reading several craft books, revised by David Michael Kaplan. You guys, you have to read this book. I cannot stress that enough. I actually found it really cheap, being sold out of like a thrift bookstore place online. It was just Amazon, but one of the options was to get it used, and it was really cool because it's like a library copy, and it's really fun to see. Some people have left notes, and it actually came with a lot of sticky notes in it from where somebody had studied it, which I found fascinating to see someone else's notes. But my favorite thing about Kaplan is that his take on how to write really concise and focused prose, cut out all your weasel words and redundancies, and the way he says it just clicks so well. And I know there's a particular chapter, how to, and he's teaching still in Chicago, I think. Yeah, that would be really cool to go there and study under him. And then I also, oh gosh, I have like 4 different books in my cart right now to order. I want to get Story Genius. I still have not read the, oh, how is it even worded? Save the Cat. The Save the Cat book, however that is. Save the Cat writes a novel. I still haven't read that. So I want to order that and see what all the hype is about. I thought about, there's a developmental editing book I thought about getting, but I don't know. All the books start to sound the same after a while of reading books that teach you how to edit or how to run an editing business. Anyways, that's a conglomeration of what I'm reading. When I'm not reading like Publishers Weekly news or just a ton of manuscripts. What's everyone else reading? That would be helpful to know. Tell me what you're reading. What kind of genres do you like? I'm not going to get into the thick of what I wanted to talk about until more people show up, because I know there were a few people who signed up, and I don't want them to miss out. Yeah. If someone can see me talking and not hear me, please comment and tell me, because that would be really terrible. I'm so frustrated that we're on YouTube because I know a lot of you guys were looking forward to the conference that we were going to have where we were going to get to chat face to face and have that kind of personal space between us. But it is what it is. We'll make the most of it and see what happens. I don't know. Maybe in some ways this is better because then once it's over, the video exists for everyone else to watch too. I don't know. I got my handy dandy notebook. You know what's sad about handy dandy notebook? My 7-year-old. Hey Sean, I see you. All the comments, like 7 comments just popped up all at the same time. You've been reading an anthology. You've been looking for it, you're eyeing it. I have oodles of anthologies that I've collected from being in school, and shamefully, I've not really gotten into them beyond what I was required to read for school. It's so bad. But there's so much good stuff at that stage where she thinks she's just too cool for everything. And there's so many shows that I remember, like babysitting school. I did get her addicted to Hannah Montana, though. I'm quite proud of that. She just finished it like a couple of days ago, and she's really sad. Poor thing. All good things must end. Michelle finished Lady Clementine. It was good, but didn't care for later. I had a really great app that told me everything I needed to do to have really good SEO on my site. I'm assuming that's what you're talking about, unless that's code for something else. And it was so helpful, but WordPress.org was just really annoying. So if I had to say anything I missed from switching to a different platform, it would probably be that app because it's not really intuitive. But I mean, on one hand, it's kind of like simple, but I'm glad you're researching. On the one hand, it's easy because I mean, you just got to have the right keywords, but it gets really deep. All the different things you can do, especially to be picked up by Google Analytical and everything. Ugh. It's just too stressful for me. I like blogging, and I somehow get views on my site every day, somehow, without really trying. Thank God. But I run out of time to blog. I really want to get into blogging more. It's really sad how little I blog. Currently reading one book that came out. Oh, I can't remember who wrote it, but it just came out not long ago. It's called The Deep, and it's like a conspiracy theory, almost like horror retelling of what happened on the Titanic. And the Titanic, you know, I feel like I used to feel like this was just me, but I've noticed that this happens with other people too. I feel like there are certain things in history that I'm just obsessed with, and I just know an absurd amount of facts for no reason. The Titanic and the Holocaust, or just a lot of things surrounding the devastation of World War II. And yeah, I'm crazy about Titanic. And the movie with Kate Winslet and Leo, I still get emotional every time I see that. And I remember there was this big, gigantic book that had all sorts of screenshots from the movie, and it was going into the backstory of James Cameron filming. And I checked it out of the library as a teenager, probably no less about it, you know. Oh, another recommendation for Titanic. A sister ship, and it was a whole conspiracy theory about a bombing. It was really convincing too. So it was like, yeah, iceberg. It was an explosion. It was fun. Okay, we're a few minutes after 8, so maybe I'll just go ahead and jump in. I'll give a big preface though. So before I dive into my plethora of opinions from my experience, I want to say that I am primarily a developmental editor. I have done copy, like line copy. I'm not really into the proofing. I used to offer it, but thank God no one took me up on it because I have learned it's not my strong suit. I just don't have patience. I love the creativity of working with story versus having to like squint my eyes at a sentence to find every bloody thing. Oh, I just noticed my sister-in-law's yelling at me in the comments, and now I'm just too excited to so hard. And I don't like the pressure of copy editing. It's just not my style. I have too much on my plate to have to stress that much when I am editing. So I prefer developmental, but it took me a long time to get to a point where I could, be comfortable and admit that. Because when you first start out, you want to get into everything, and the more you can offer, the more desirable you look, or maybe the more business you'll get. The editors, that's why. And I'm also primarily working in fiction. I've done a little bit of nonfiction, but I wouldn't call myself an authority on it by any means. So I don't like to talk about things that I'm not super educated in because I don't want to risk looking like an idiot. So I am mostly in fiction. A good majority of that is in YA and middle grade, and a good many adult books, but adult books tend to be so uniquely their own thing, whereas YA over time just starts to all look the same. I mean, if we're all being honest, which as an editor, you're gonna have to be honest. Yeah, YA, I guess because I just so primarily see people writing in fantasy and sci-fi. Better in live, I hope it's not on my end. I'm sorry. That really would suck. But I am primarily developmental and genre fiction. I'm going to give you guys a second to catch up if the lag is that bad. I don't want everybody to miss out. I wanted to do a Zoom video with you guys, but then I realized there was a time limit. And I thought, well, that sucks. We'd be right in the middle of saying something and just get knocked off. How's everybody doing? Is it still bad? Is it lagging still? Oh, back-to-back Zoom. Yeah, I thought about that. I didn't want to be annoying. Maybe we can try that next time. We're here for now. Let's make the most of it. We'll see how it goes. If you have bad problems with the lagging, yeah, definitely go back and watch. Okay. So instead of just sitting here and telling everybody you would be good at editing for X, Y, Z, or you would be bad for maybe these reasons, I'm wanting you to think very much about your individual track in this. And there's not really a one size fits all. So rather than give you information, I just want to provoke your mind with some questions. And if you happen to have, consider them more critically. But I want to challenge you to think about what about you personally makes you possibly good at this. I don't want to ever say that anybody absolutely can't or isn't suited for this. It's not a matter of saying, well, if you have this, you're going to be good at it. If you don't, you should just pick a different profession. It's more of if you are lacking in certain areas, be conscious of what those areas are and know that you need to put a lot of focus into those. And the more aware you are, the more you can tackle ways to improve those areas. So it's not a matter of you can't, it's a matter of what can you do? Put yourself in a better. Now, it sounds so easy on the surface, but when you really think about it, there are lots of nuanced reasons for why we get into editing. If you if you're coming into this as a writer, as an author, especially if you are already published and have deadlines, you may be coming into this because you want to broaden your author platform. I know a lot of people want to do that to try to get a bigger outreach. Maybe if they're doing editing, they'll reach more people that they can kind of direct towards their books. Honestly, the people you're going to be editing are not necessarily going to be your target audience or your consumers. So I get it, but at the same time, it's probably not going to have enough sales that reason alone is a good reason to do editorial. And in that same vein, a lot of authors want to start doing editing to kind of supplement the income because they want to keep their job in the same related like field. So they would rather do editing than have a second job doing who knows what, working in business somewhere or something corporate or retail, whatever, you name it. And I like that idea of trying to stay in the same career, the same field. They are very much related. I read a very interesting article from an anonymous person complaining about their editorial service, saying that they think the reason why the service was so bad, and this was published by authorsguild.org, and they were complaining that they didn't like that person kind of shoved their opinions on them. And honestly, I feel like the problem there is something entirely different. I don't think it was because the person is an author. I think it's because they have some editorial skill they need to work out. But I think that being an author, especially if you have been through the process of finding representation and continually working on new manuscripts with an editor, definitely informs you a lot about storytelling. And that experience can come with you into editorial in a really great positive way. A lot of people want to go into editing after they've worked with an editor because it's just infectious and you get to see what it's like, and maybe you decide you want to be on the other side of the coin. I've seen that happen a lot. And in that same vein, I think a lot seems to be like, it's really at this point, it's cliche, talking about how you just can't stand typos, you can't stand seeing grammatical errors, you just have to fix it. Just itches you until you fix it. And that can make people think that maybe they're really cut out for editorial. On that one, the itch an editor does not make. You can be very aggravated with inaccuracies in English or whatever language you're working in and still be a terrible editor. It takes a lot more than just wanting to visually see correct punctuation and grammar. It takes knowing it really, really well. And even if you know that, it also takes people skills to be able to communicate the corrections you feel needed to take place. So definitely has to be more than just the editing bug that bites. A lot of people want to get into editing because they just love story crafting. They love the whole creative aspect of taking all these ideas and plucking them out of the air to see which ones are going to work and which ones don't. And they just kind of get high off this idea of seeing a plot hole and figuring out what to put in it and, rearranging things to make a cohesive narrative that is really going to pull at the heartstrings. I would say I'm definitely in that camp. I want to pick it apart immediately. I want to go somewhere and sit down and just talk about it. And it doesn't matter how entertaining it is. If the storyline has a problem, it's gonna bug me, and I'm gonna come up with all these ideas of what would have been better. And that's just how I think. Along those same lines, some people get interested in editing because they love storycraft and they decided as a small step to get into working with that by beta reading and being a critique partner. and they love the experience so much that they think, oh, well, maybe I could be an editor and I could turn this into something that I make money with. So think about all those different ways you can come into editorial, which perspective sounds more like you. And that's important to know where you're coming from, because even in the most subtle and nuanced ways, the reason why you want to do editing is going to influence what you do with editorial and how you interact with people more so than you would ever imagine. For example, if you want to do it just just for money, apparently bad, it's just good to be very conscious of your motivations. If you're wanting to do it solely for income, that's a little more self-focused, and everybody's got to make money. Like, there's nothing wrong with wanting to do something to make some money, especially if you're trying to do it in conjunction with book sales and you're trying to do something that keeps you in the same lane. There's nothing wrong with that. But the problem is that there is no immediate profit from getting into freelance editing. I spent probably my first entire year making pretty much nothing. I did a lot of free work just to get a reputation, to build a portfolio. And that's something I'll talk about in another session. But if you're getting into it strictly for money, it's a really slow burn. So don't get your hopes up. If you're wanting to do it purely for the love of helping other writers, that is a motivation that is going to see you through a lot of crap that comes your way, and it'll make it worth it. It'll make the hard parts much more bearable. And when you start to feel like you're burning out and you're not wanting to do another project for several months, it'll remind you why you got into it in the first place. I've had seasons where I've gotten just so tired of not being involved in my own writing, not being able to read just for pleasure, not being able to like just do whatever I want for a substantial like amount of days in a row. And I thought, well, I'm going to take some time off and then I'll meet someone. And I fall in love with their story and fall in love with their vision for their story and for their career. And I can't help but want to get involved. and when you care about the stories and you care about writers, it's going to always drag you back in somehow, even when you don't want to be in it, because you fell in love with it for a reason, and that's not likely to go away. Even when you get burned out, you take a little break and something will always draw you back in, or at least it did for me. So I want you to think about why you want to get into editing. And if you want to journal it out, I highly recommend that, just because when you consider why you're getting into editing, it puts the rest of the questions in perspective. So let me flip through my handy dandy notebook, as I so eloquently called it earlier, and get into the ways in which freelance editing may suit you, because it's a lot more than just wanting to be involved with stories and with writers. There are a lot of skills involved with being a good communicator, a good problem solver. So I have broken this up into a list of personality, social skills, and management. If I could tell you my ideal editor that I would hire at my agency, which we currently only have 2 others, just the ideal person for personality would be welcoming. It's really hard for a writer to want to communicate with you if they don't feel welcome to approach you. So I would join welcome with being very approachable. You have to be dependable. You have to be that kind of person that people just get this sense that even if it's only one way, you are a dependable person. Enthusiastic. Writers want you to be over the moon, jumping, screaming over their stories. Enthusiasm goes such a long way. And I'll talk about this in another session. That's a big one. If you want to be an extraordinary editor, you have to be able to show enthusiasm for what your writers are doing, because it goes a long way. If you just simply say what you think needs to be revised, you're gonna, you know, you're gonna do your job, but you have to lift them up and make them feel like they can do it. Even if you're working with a manuscript that you initially think is really bad, encouraging them and telling them they can do it and telling them that you're going to walk them through it and that you believe in them because you think this is going to be great goes so far. I like people that are fueled by problem solving. I'm that kind of person that as soon as there's a problem, I get excited. Whereas a lot of other people would just get stressed. I get excited because I like thinking of what I can do to solve the problem. Because a lot of the times, if you run into a problem, when you go through the journey of fixing it, you usually come out with something even better than you started with. And that's exciting because I like progress. And I like people who are caring and compassionate, because writers get they get dejected very easily. And if you're coming into this as a writer and an author, a lot of these feelings are not surprising to you. They're not new. This is a thing that we all go through. We get depressed, we get unmotivated, we get writer's block, we get just so moody about writing. And I always tell people that being an editor is part being professional, like 5% being a professional and 95% being a therapist, because I spend such a significant amount of time just taking care of writers emotionally. And that's a big part of it. And you have to be someone who has compassion in order to jinx. There you go. What about a lead in there? Yeah, you have to be an encouraging person. If when someone comes to you with a problem, you kind of go, not affection, but care in an encouraging way, then it may be an area that you need to practice figuring out what can you say to your writer that's going to make them feel encouraged, even if initially, and if you don't go get it, nobody's going to give it to you. It's not going to fall in your lap. You can make an awesome website. You can tweet about your services all day long. And it's not just going to happen. You have to find ways to go get opportunity, even if that means, oh gosh, I spent so much time just picking up I'm a huge Grey's Anatomy fan. I call them my pro bono surgery books. When I get bored and I really want a project, I will just find someone at random that I'm really into and say, hey, I'll edit your book for free, just because I want to do something and I want to meet people. And I cannot tell you how many times I have helped someone to that capacity and they came back to me later and they said, I enjoyed working with you so much that I would like to hire you this time. And or they recommend me to somebody who wants to hire me. That happens more often than not. More often than people coming to me. Let me backtrack. I've had a few come to me after getting free help saying that they want to hire me. But more than that, they have told someone else about what I did, and that person wanted to hire me. So what you do for one person, it trickles down and affects many events and programs that float around on Twitter. And they'll occasionally be taking submissions for people who want to mentor. Y'all know about Pitch Wars, and gosh, there's so many. Rev Pit. I'm blanking now, but there's like a lot more. And they take on editors and get involved in stuff like that. Try to find in your community places where you can maybe offer a writing workshop of some sort. So is definitely a go-getter kind of person that is an editor. And you have to be very giving of your time, of your effort, of your patience. There's always something you're giving. And if you're the type of person who constantly wants affirmation or to be praised in order to feel a sense of self-worth. You may struggle, you help someone, and then they just fall off the face of the planet. And I mean, they say thank you and they're thankful for you, but they don't keep in touch. It's not one of those things where everybody that you work with becomes your buddy. And a lot of the time, a lot of the angst that goes around on Twitter towards agents kind of leaks over into prejudices against editors. And it oftentimes feels like we're getting the same kind of hate that they get as gatekeepers, because even though we're trying to help the author have the story that they want, a lot of people have bad editorial experiences, and it shapes the way they think about editors and give to the community even when it doesn't feel like they're necessarily giving back. Because you have someone with their book and they go on and they get representation and they're celebrating that, and they go on and they've been sold to a publisher, and then pretty soon their book, I helped you get this far. I was one of the first people that ever helped you with your manuscript. And it's not your place to want praise for that, but you can't help but feel in your head a little bit, like you did something and they get all the benefit, if that makes any sense. Which that's just how any sort of freelancing job works. You do your job is something definitely to be mindful of. And my last 2 points for personality, I wrote down be a visionary and love learning, because it's always changing. You always have to find new solutions for things. I'm running really long into this discussion on what I want from a good editor. Let's move along faster. Social skills. You have to be a listener. Writer, well, most, not all, but most writers will talk. And you got to be really good at listening, not just because they need you to listen, but because listening is a better skill than talking. Because if you're not listening correctly, it doesn't matter what you tell them about their story, it's not going to work. You have to hear them. You have to understand where they're coming from, what their needs are. No writer is going to be the same. No story is the same. So you have to listen and figure out your specific approach to this person, because it's not a one size fits all. You can't treat everyone the same. You can't treat all stories the same. You have to listen to what the writer and the story are telling you, and you have to be empathetic to their needs. So a lot of people have to work really hard on being empathetic, because it's just not always easy to put yourself in someone's shoes if you haven't experienced. And you do have to be a good communicator. It doesn't do any good if you give someone notes and they're confused. And I hear all the time people have experiences with editors where they got their notes and they didn't understand what it was, and they just wrote off the editor. And I'm like, did you ask them questions? Did you ask them to explain this? Did you ever have a conversation where you got clarification on any of this? And they're like, no. I'm like, well, why? Did you not feel like you were welcome to do that? Why? It blows my mind, because I have such open communication with my clients when I work with them. I don't just take a manuscript and work on it and then give it back to them and that's it. Like, we're conversing like the entire time I'm working on it to be a team. So you have to communicate your thoughts well, but you also have to make sure that they know they can communicate back to you. You also have to recognize and understand learning styles. Not everyone is going to want to communicate the same. Some personalities I've encountered, they put me kind of on an unapproachable pedestal, and they don't want to talk to me like I'm a peer or a human. And that's always awkward, but some people, that's just their style, and you just got to roll with it, and you give them your feedback and you call it a day, and you don't feel bad about it, because it's just them being them, and that's okay. And then there are other people who, if they're not talking to you every single day, they feel like you're not working with them. With those people, you've got to learn to set boundaries. But yeah, everyone communicates in a different way. And the quicker you are at learning how someone needs you to communicate with them, and also how other people communicate back to you. You have to be aware of your own way that you interpret people, because that can cloud how you interpret communication with somebody. I have started doing things very much in person as much as I can, whether it be a phone call or whether we just send each other voicemails. A lot of times I will just record myself thinking out loud about something and send it to them for them to listen to and think about and get back to me, as opposed to writing everything, because that communicates on a whole other level. You hear the nuance in the voice, you can hear the tone in a way that you just can't on screen. And it makes a huge difference. So if you've never had any sort of like team building training where they talked about communication styles and you've discovered like what your communication style is, I highly recommend that you research that, look it up, see if you can find any articles that go over different types of communication styles. There are tests out there, a lot of them you have to pay for, but there may be some free little tests or quizzes out there that you can take to kind of give you an idea of where you fall. Management skills. Let me just read through these because I'm being a blabbermouth. Punctual. Writers are not going to be happy if you miss a deadline. I mean, they're understanding if you need it, but obviously just don't be lazy. Organized. Are you an organized person, or are you just kind of haphazard with the things that you're working on? Business savvy. Obviously, not everyone going into their business for the first time knows how to run a business, but it takes wanting to learn it, and it takes being aware and enthused about it. You have to be self-motivated, and that's a biggie because you don't have a boss. You are the boss, and you have to be able to set your own deadlines, get the space that you need to be able to work on things you need done, be able to assert to other people in your life the time that you need to focus on things. You have to be innovative and balanced. So you have to sometimes get really creative in order to accomplish what you need to do. And you have to balance that with everything else going on in your life. And people who typically don't do well balancing multiple projects on their plate probably will struggle more in this area. I'm the type of person, I love to stay busy. If my plate is not overrunning with things, I start to feel like something's wrong. And then I start to panic because there's too much on my plate. So I'm not like a prime example of someone who's perfectly balanced. I think it's a journey, and sometimes I get it right, sometimes I don't, but you definitely have to be conscious of finding balance, because without having normal like work hours, you can sometimes get obsessive. Like I have sometimes checked email at like 2 a.m. because I woke up and I thought about something, and I just checked my phone and then I saw it. And then once I saw it, I felt like I had to answer it. So yeah, balance is a biggie. Knowing technology so that way you can use what is out there in order to communicate as best as you can with the people you work with. Also being able to build a website. If that's something you cannot fathom yourself possibly ever doing alone, there are people who could help you build one. But it is very helpful if you know how to do these things yourself. And I don't mean like crazy programming. I mean just basic like WordPress, learning how to put your information on there and being done. Also, take someone who wants to stay educated. I subscribe to the Chicago Manual Style Guide online, and I get periodical emails with updates of just various changes they've made to the style guide or questions people have asked, and they're giving their statement on what the answer would be. And staying up to date on publishing news is a biggie. It's astounding to me how many editors I run into who don't keep up with the industry. And on the one hand, as freelancers, we're most often being asked to work on a manuscript that is going to be either A, queried, so it's kind of the responsibility of the agent and the publisher to understand the market, or B, self-published, which most of those people just don't even really care about the market because they're going to do their own thing. But a lot about the market will influence how you shape a story, what makes the story a good seller. And if you are not up to date on publishing news and you're not hanging out in that kind of crowd, then there's going to be a bit of a disconnect between you, the writer, and publishing. They're looking to you to be an authority figure on things. If they have a question about, is such and such in my manuscript going to work for a YA audience? Are you going to go off of your intuition based on just things you've read in YA? Or are you going to be informed on YA trends because you're staying up to date on what's going on in publishing? There's a big difference. One is current and one is outdated. So you definitely have to be motivated to stay educated, and you have to be resourceful and meticulous with what you do. So that is my ideal editor. None of us are ideal. All of us are going to have an area somewhere in there where that's just not us. And that's okay because no one's perfect. And as I said, you want to know what your strong suits are and what your weaknesses are so you can work on them. So for this portion, I want to challenge you to write out what you feel like are your strongest skills, the strongest aspects of your personality that would apply to this job, what you are strong in socially, and what you feel like you will do well managing your business. Create a list of all the things that will be your greatest strengths. And then also create a list of the things that you think you will struggle with a little bit more. That'll be more on the weakness side. And that will give you a good idea of the things you maybe need to work on before you actually launch a business and put yourself out there as an editor. Or if you're already out there as an editor and you're trying to figure out how to be more successful, these would be good things for you to work on while you're waiting on more work to arrive on your doorstep. There's no shame even saying that you're temporarily unavailable, and you don't have to give a reason why. People will just assume that you're working on another project. It'll make you look like you're successful and you're editing. You can say on your site that you're unavailable. Put some time into really focusing on what areas you need to work on in order to be a better editor. Now, obviously, there may be some deal breakers. Maybe, I guess that's really up for you to determine for yourself. If you're not in a situation at your home where you can successfully work on things in a timely manner, if your turnaround time because of life is going to be like a 3-month period, that might be a deal breaker. I don't know how it would work in your schedule. If you really hate communicating with people and you want to be able to just get a manuscript, do your job, and that's it, and you don't want to talk to them about it, that might be a deal breaker as well. But for the majority of your weaknesses, I believe it's something you can work on. And you can grow and adapt. And it's good to think about what your strengths are, because that will be what you become known for, and it will shape how people perceive you. So being aware of your strengths gives you a better idea of how you're going to come across. Maybe even almost your editor brand, so to speak, is very much informed by your strengths. And some examples here of maybe some weaknesses that can be adapted. Say maybe you're a shy person and you have fears of talking to clients. Maybe you can spend some time thinking about possible icebreakers when you meet someone and you're super nervous, and it's like being on a first date. You have no idea how they communicate, what they're going to think of you. You read their story and you give them some feedback and you're like, oh my God, they're going to hate me. I've scared them off. This is over. They're never going to hire me. It's nerve-wracking every time. That part never gets better. I'm sorry. It just doesn't. You can think of some ways to have an icebreaker that kind of gets you both familiar with each other. And you can even do this before you're hired. When you're first meeting somebody in a consultation, everyone, that comes to you is going to immediately just be like, what's your price? And I try my hardest to steer people away from that question, not because I don't want to answer it, but because I want to get to know them and I want them to know what I possibly have to offer them and what I think of their story before we get into the logistics. Because a lot of times, if you connect with someone, even if the price is not exactly what they were looking for, they will be more willing to make it work if they connected with you in a way that they've not connected with anyone else. So I like to do icebreakers. The person I'm working with right now, like our very first interaction, I could tell he was like a little nervous. I was like, dude, I'm really chill. I'm sitting here with wine and cake. You can say literally anything to me. Go for it. I'm your counselor for the next like 30 minutes. It was so funny. And instant icebreaker. If you're like doing a conference, like if you're doing consultation with someone over the phone to figure out if y'all are going to seal the deal, it's even better to just ask them questions like, what are you into watching on TV? How are you doing? What's a typical day like for you? When do you like to write? Just some sort of questions to find some common ground. And that'll make you a lot more comfortable. If you are a very strong talker and you like to give your opinions very strongly, and you're one of those people that's very out there on social media, and you like to kind of get involved in the fist fights, so to speak, you're going to have to work on listening. And it would be a really good exercise for you to practice asking questions. Instead of listening and then immediately giving your take on something, listen and find a way to ask a question to keep them going and provide more to the narrative to give you context and give you time to think about a better way to answer in a way that is more understanding, in a way that shows that you took the information they gave you and you processed it through their lens and not your own. And that's really important. Maybe you're a pantser and you're unorganized. You're going to have to take some time to figure out what you can put into your life to help you become the kind of person who can handle businessy things. I am super organized, but I'm also very busy. So there have been times where I have a master spreadsheet where I keep a log of all the money that comes in and comes out for the business. And there are so many times where I'm busy and I always feel an urgency when someone needs something. So say my partner, Matt, he'll shoot me an email saying, hey, so-and-so signed their contract. I need you to send the invoice to them. And I'm like out at the grocery store. I have my app. I do everything through PayPal. I have the app on my phone. I will stop in the middle of Walmart because I have a bad memory. So if I don't do it like right then, chances are that I might forget it. So I do it immediately. And because I'm at the store, when I send the invoice, I don't immediately get to my spreadsheet and put the invoice in. I think honestly, y'all, here's a real honest moment with you. I don't think I have updated my master spreadsheet since probably like last September when I brought on my most recent editor. It's bad. I really need to work on it. Like I kind of went through and I did some addition for all the invoices to do my tax and money spent to do my taxes. But I kind of just cheated and added everything up off of my PayPal app instead of actually putting it in the spreadsheet for paperwork. So yeah, obviously not everyone is going to be that type A about paperwork and spreadsheets and everything. But the more organized you are, the better. Because when you are registered as a business and you have money coming in and money going out, when I say money going out, I mean anything you buy that is a business expense. And also money you pocket as well. It's good to keep up with that, to keep your income, not to say that it has to be separate from wherever you primarily spend your money. You don't have to have like a separate business account, but in some place, whether it's in a spreadsheet or whether it's just written down somewhere. Keep a log of the money that you spend out of what you made. Because if you start to notice that there's no money going back to the business whatsoever at any point in time, you're probably going to run into a growth issue, because it does take some investment to be able to continue. You have to be able to pay for your registration. You have to be able to pay for, like, say, my Chicago Manual membership. If you want to be a member of the Editorial Freelancers Association, you have to pay for that. And those are all business type expenses. And it's good because they are investments with return, and they're very important. But yeah, you've got to be able to manage this kind of stuff. And if you're the kind of person that just kind of does things willy-nilly and doesn't organize very well, if you have your files all over the place on your computer and your email is like super backed up and just all in your inbox, y'all, that gives me shivers just imagining it. I have folders upon folders upon folders. So if you are that type of person, you're going to need to go ahead and start, like, strategizing how you're going to keep everything straight, because that stuff's important. You can't get away from the business side of it. You can't get away from the legal aspect of it. Doesn't do you any good to sign a contract with a client if, like, you lose contract. But yeah, those are some examples of how to consider your weaknesses and think about what you're going to do to counteract those. All right, I'm going to try to quickly wrap this up by just giving some notes about the difference between copy and developmental, because it's very good to know which one you're better at, because everyone starts out wanting to kind of do everything. And as I said at the beginning of the video, I hope everyone caught that, but I was talking about how I started out wanting to do everything, and I very quickly realized that it's just not possible, and you spread yourself really thin. So, real quickly, if you are more detail-oriented and you like to focus on the rules and the style guides, you have an eye for grammar and a punctuation, very good understanding of the English language, and I cannot stress that enough. You're a lover of concise language, and you love looking for consistency and have an eye for sentence flow. You are going to very much love line copy and proofreading, and those types of jobs lean more towards corporate and academic as far as where the big money comes from. You can, oh gosh, you can make really good money if you focus on being hired by corporate. Even within the big 5 publishers, they're hiring lots of freelancers to take over a lot of the copy and proof. And especially in academia, you can make huge money freelancing in those areas. Now, that's not to say you won't get people, especially that are self-publishing, that want you to copy, edit, and proof. That does happen. Totally different, like, price range, income bracket. People that I'll get into that more on my pricing seminar, but people that hire you from an institution or a company, they're prepared to pay you the big bucks. Self-published are prepared to pay you almost nothing. So very different types of clients. And if you want to cater to both, that's possible. But like I said, it definitely stretches you thin. And if you want to be making very, very big income on a professional level from copy editing, you are going to want to focus on getting your name out there to corporations and academia. As far as developmental, that's more if you love thinking about the bigger picture. You like stepping back from the story and thinking of it as a whole thing instead of looking at it sentence by sentence. You like to focus on the plot, character, the story structure, all the elements that make the story. You have an eye for plot holes. You notice the inconsistencies in the plot very quickly. You just love storytelling. You love everything that is involved with that, the beats, the acts, the arrangement of the chapters, the whole shebang. You have a knowledge of genre and age. So Like, say you obviously can't expect the same kind of plot structure in a romance as you would a sci-fi, and not to say that you can't have elements of either in each other, but romance follows a very certain tropey structure. And science fiction has certain things that every science fiction will have. And you being knowledgeable in what genres typically require in order to be within that genre, and also knowing what's appropriate for each age group, if that excites you and you have a knowledge of that, definitely more of a sign that you're in developmental. Also, if you have a passion for marrying author vision with proper execution, if you love mentoring other writers and listening to what they're like going through with their story and then saying, well, from my outside perspective, have you tried thinking about doing such and such? And do you think that this portion of your story accomplishes XYZ? And those are the kind of conversations you really love having with people to give them that aha moment and to help them understand how they can just do what they want to do with their story well and in a way that actually accomplishes their goal. That's a developmental editor for you. Most of my work for developmental, crazy enough, has been with people who are looking to query. It's funny. Uh, the climate on Twitter, especially, it seems like everyone says that if you're going to be querying, it's very, very stupid to hire an editor. It's ridiculous. Like, why would you have an editor work on your story when you're going to have an editor at the publisher? Well, that's all well and good, but you have to get an agent and then get sold to the publisher. And a lot of people over time getting rejections from agents or getting feedback from agents who say this and this and this are not working in your story, they're left with either the decision to scrap it and work on a new manuscript or hire an editor. So I have actually worked with lots of people who are querying, and I've worked with people who are self-publishing and need help getting to the point where their story is working and doing really well. A lot of times I do a combo. I've actually done the combo for most of my clients where I do a round of developmental. And then when we are satisfied with where it's looking developmentally, I will go through and do more of a line by line. Now, I typically myself don't offer proofreading, so I'm not the last step. I'll do several rounds. I'll even go line by line with you, and I will even correct your grammar and punctuation. But do not go send that book out to Amazon after you've worked with me. Get some proofreaders, because one person is not perfect. One person is not infallible. You have to have several people looking at a manuscript. So I always tell people, don't let me be the one-stop shop. After you've worked with me, you still need to make sure you have somebody proofreading if this is going out self-published. It takes a whole team. Working one-on-one with someone is great, but one-on-one cannot be the only thing that you do. So, as I have said, if you can pick a lane, it's going to help you so much. It helps you brand yourself as an editor. It helps with your marketing. It helps with the designing of your website. It helps you figure out what clientele to target. It helps you hone your skill, because say you have a client who needs copy edits and you're spending a lot of time before, during, and after reading a lot of books that tell you the specifics of different things, because we're not all geniuses in this. We're not we're not born with the knowledge of exactly what a sentence needs. It takes refreshing. There are times where, dear God, so the difference between using lay and lie, that you're going to lie down on the bed, but you lay a book on the bed. Every flipping time I encounter that in a book, I have to refresh my memory on the rules, because you would think by now it would be instinctual, but just sometimes the wording of the sentence just makes you brain fart, and you have to look up rules. I'm using my Chicago manual all the time. So if you're working very heavily in that, and then your next client is developmental, you're dividing your skill set so much. And over time, that makes you a greater asset if you can actually juggle becoming proficient in both. But for just starting out, it can be really difficult because you're switching gears and you can't fully dive into one or the other because you're just too busy doing both. So I would suggest figuring out like which one you prefer and try to stick with it. And if for that portion, I would spend a lot of time thinking about what aspects of actual editing you do like, write them out, and see if that helps you figure out which camp you're more in line with. Now, here's the tough love part. None of it's going to matter if you don't think you can balance it with your writing career. Because I know a lot of you, well, the whole premise of this was to talk to authors who are thinking of doing editorial. And if you are trying to balance a very hectic writing schedule, like I don't know how you're going to fit editing in there. Uh, when I was talking previously about that article where the person was complaining that their editorial service was kind of subpar and they think it was because the person's an author, there were a lot of comments on there from authors who are also editors, and their take on it was, well, it's not a problem that the person is an author. It's a problem that they weren't devoting all their time and skill towards you. And a lot of them made the statement that when they are editing, they don't write. And that's definitely true for me. And it's not even a conscious decision. I get so into the projects I'm working on, I very rarely am able to think about my own writing. And I certainly don't have the time for it. So, that's really the kicker. You can have all the skills to be a good editor, but if you're trying to juggle it with a writing career that just doesn't have room for it, then you're just setting yourself and your client up for a lot of headache. You're setting your business up for potential failure. And that's the biggest thing to consider. Just because you like grammar doesn't mean you're going to be really good at juggling everything that being an editor and an author entails. And also, like I mentioned, a lover of just knowing English, like linguistics, knowing how English works and how to communicate that. So many people love correcting typos, but have no idea how to even explain what a subjunctive is. And you can't bypass that. You can't just wing it, and you can't just throw out your opinion on what a sentence needs, because an author's going to ask you why. They're going to need you to explain it. And if you can't do that, then that is definitely a sign that you're lacking in that skill. So it can't just be something that you thought of one day and it sounded great. Given everything I've talked about, it's clearly something that takes a lot of forethought. And that's why I wanted to have a whole session where I talked about you have what it takes basically to be an editor, because you have to really assess that for yourself. It takes a lot more than just want. It takes people skills, it takes language skills, and it takes being able to balance your other careers in your life, especially if you're already an author on top of a traditional job. Adding editing is essentially a third job, and something's got to give. And if you have family, a spouse on top of that, yeah, you're going to burn out really, really fast, and you're going to struggle to find time for things. And if you think that's going to be a struggle, consider how, even if you think personally you can muscle through that, think about the impact that might have on your client. If you're not able to give them your very best, focused, rested self, then I really think it's unfair to ask for them to pay for that. And I really don't think they're going to get the service you promised them. So you're gonna have to figure out, are you gonna be the type of author editor that puts writing to the side when it comes time to edit a project? Are you gonna try to do them kind of concurrently, where maybe one day you're editing, one day you're writing? A lot of I've met some people who can juggle that, but I've also met some people who just say that it's too much whiplash. Maybe it'll take doing a volunteer project for somebody to really figure out whether you can swing it. And that's my probably my advice. If after you've thought this through, maybe written it out to decide if this is going to be something you can pull off, practice on somebody and just find, there are bukus of people out there that would love free help. Find someone that you connect with and offer them a free edit. And I mean, just be upfront. Honesty is the best thing. Just tell them you want to practice and see how it goes. And then it's kind of like a beta run, and you're just testing out whether this would work out for you, and be open about asking them, like, how am I doing? Did you think that this was great? Would you recommend me as an editor? Have a conversation with your writer about it, because the writer's going to be able to tell you better than anyone how you're doing. And people in the writing community are going to be honest, and they're going to tell you. And that would probably be the best thing you could do, is just practice and figure it out hands-on, whether it's going to be something you can manage. Having a full project like that on top of your writing, with no pressure of money on the line, and especially if you can find somebody that doesn't have a really tight deadline, that's gonna put you to the test and show you just how well you can perform. But it also give you room in case you find out you can't perform within those boundaries. So it'll be a lot more forgivable, and there won't be anything at stake. So, woo! You guys, I wrote out a bunch of stuff because I was like, I'm going to say all that in 20 minutes, and then I'm going to be staring at the screen like blankly, feeling weird. And then now I've talked forever and ever. Y'all should have thrown something at me in the comments. What's everyone thinking? Has anybody got any questions? Aw, Michelle, thank you for saying it was helpful. That's so sweet. I am definitely looking forward to the next webinars I have, and definitely hoping that we can meet on a platform where everyone can have a discussion. I think that would be cool. And maybe even send out some written material so everyone could, maybe like a guidebook. I've been thinking about creating some sort of guidebook to send out that you could kind of be working through, or at least just have with you while I'm talking so you can fill it out, that kind of thing. That could be cool. I really am winging it here. So I'm putting into practice everything I'm telling you guys. Go wing it. Here I am winging it. Oh, I haven't dissuaded you yet. Leighton, where do you recommend we subscribe to keep up with publisher news? Publishers Weekly has bukus of newsletters that you can sign up to for free. And I mean bukus. They have ones for indie publishing, children's publishing, literary. They have one that they send out daily with like the top news, and then they have one they send out that's like the weekly roundup. And then they also have newsletters they send out that just tell you new releases, Publisher Weekly's top must-have books for the year. So many. Just get on there and just sign up for as much as you could possibly want. It's overwhelming though. I wake up to like 15 emails and it's hard to keep up with. I get behind so often. There's also a website called Publishing Trends. It's just publishingtrends.com, and they round up the like top 5 articles for the week so that you don't have to go searching through all of Publisher Weekly stuff to find it. So they talk about the top news, and it's really easy to get on there and just click on the articles that are interesting to you. Also, what I really love about Publisher Weekly is that at the end, they tell you what jobs are open in the market on a corporate level for editorial and agenting and all that stuff, but they also keep you up to date on like who has moved where. Like a lot of people are like switching positions. So-and-so was an assistant and now they're executive director. And I mean, not that that is ever really going to be pertinent to your story, but if you follow any particular people, it keeps you really up to date. There's like bookstore news. There's all sorts of like when they have fellowships and competitions, and yeah, Publishers Weekly is where it's at. And Publishing Trends is a great way to help you consolidate that. I have a few agents that I follow very closely, but I obviously can't do that widespread, or I would just never have time to keep up with it. But some of my favorites in each genre I work with, I keep up with them. Michelle, you're asking if you had to be a successful writer to be a good editor. Well, let me tell you something about that. I am not published, and I don't think you necessarily have to be a published and accomplished writer to have credentials. You know, a lot of people think, well, I'm not going to work with an editor who hasn't successfully gone through everything I'm wanting to go through. Well, as I've talked about throughout this video, sometimes being an author while you're editing is kind of a conflict of interest. But you do have to, I think personally, I think writing skill is just inherent. How can you understand the needs of a story without also being good at writing stories? Like, I have a hard time conceptualizing how that would even be possible. But I don't think you have to be a publicly successful like author to what's the word I'm looking for? To be qualified to be an editor. Also, along those same lines, I spent forever being insecure about the fact that I don't have an English degree. And I thought, well, no one's going to want to hire me because I don't have the education for it. Well, I want to get a master's in publishing, so I started a creative writing program just to get my ducks in a row, because when you want to get into publishing, you kind of can't skip the degrees on your resume unless you just happen to magically know someone who gets you in the door. You have to have a really good resume with degree programs on it. So I got into a creative writing program, and let me tell you, you don't learn jack squat about editorial in a writing program. You learn a little bit about writing, and that will help inform you some about stories, but largely you don't learn anything about editing. You definitely don't learn anything about running your own freelancing business. So yeah, a degree program under your belt does not necessarily mean a whole lot, especially if it's literature focused. You don't learn anything about writing when you do literature. I mean, obviously you have to write well enough to do good on your papers, but the actual skill of fiction writing, you're not involved in that. And what I find actually way more educational is Editorial Freelancers Association on their website. I don't know how many of you guys knew this, but they offer courses. The downside is that there is a cost, but they're very focused, and you get one-on-one time with people because the classes are generally pretty small, and some of them are intentionally very, very small. Some of them are webinar based, some of them are run more like an actual college course, but they're very specific, and some of them are geared towards specifically the art of editing, but most of them are just like story craft, particularly in like a specific genre, or I don't know. You should actually just get on their website. It's theefa.org and look at the educational stuff they offer on there. It's awesome. Do you put together a resume and add those courses? Are you saying, like, do I advertise my resume? I'm a little confused about your question, Jennifer. Along those lines, though, I do have a portfolio on my website where I list everything I've worked on. And I haven't regrettably updated my portfolio on there to say that I am in a writing program. Yes, I know. That was very helpful, Jennifer. I love you. Yeah, I on my website, I do have a portfolio where I have listed a lot of stuff. that I've worked on over the years. It gives people an idea of what you have experience in. I love portfolios. You've looked into certificate in editing? I've not looked into that one specifically, but there are a few programs that I have looked at. And, you know, here's my take on it because I wanted to get involved with, oh, I'm blanking on her name. I can't even remember the name of the program. Author something. Anyways, there are lots of certificates out there. The question is that certificate something that has enough clout that writers are going to look at that and think, wow, you're really educated? Like, how many writers actually know about it? So if you're doing it just so you look very educated and accomplished, consider how much writers are actually going to interpret it that way. If you're doing it because you really want the education, well, then, I mean, it's just up to you and what you want to invest. I mean, there's never any harm in education. You always turn out smarter. Clout. Yeah, the benefit of courses other than knowledge would just be clout, I guess. Yeah. I mean, I love continued education, so I'm always into learning. It really just depends on what you feel like you need and whether you think they're going to make you more prepared. And the truth is, people are drawn to the idea of someone who has been to school for English, even if they have no idea what that entails. It makes them feel good. So the more education you can brag of, even if they have no idea what that certificate is, if it's on your website, it'll automatically make them think, oh, you're legit. So it's just really up to you and what you want to invest in and what you think is going to be good for your image. Oh, the types of courses. I should definitely send you guys an email or put it in the description later or something. The EFA, the Editorial Freelancers Association. Can I just type it in right here? Will that work? www.the, oh, why is my all caps on? That's not good. The EFA.org. I think that's it. It sounds right. I just can't remember if there's a dash. I think there's a dash. Anyways. Cost versus benefit is something I'll argue with myself over all the time because, yeah, it can cost a lot of money and what actually is going to be the benefit. That's actually the reason why I have not signed up to be a member of the EFA yet. There are huge benefits to being on the site, supposedly, because if you're listed on EFA, writers can get on there and find you. And it's an association that you pay for. So the people that generally go on there to look for an editor, they, number one, have a lot of money because they're expecting to have to pay a lot because the recommended pricing system on the EFA is uber expensive, like $40 to $60 an hour. So if you're listed on there and you're finding clientele on there, you can guarantee you're going to get a good paycheck from it. And they also have a job board where you can straight up like look for people who are hiring for editors and put yourself out there to try to get a job. Not like a full-time job, but like, gigs. And I've talked to many people who have been on there before, and it's mixed. Some people say that they like it and they like being able to see the job postings. Other people say that they found no benefit in it because they never got enough clientele off of there for it to matter for the investment. So it's another one of those things that you kind of just have to try and see what it does for you. I do know that if you're a member, you get a discount on the courses they offer. But in my opinion, it's not a big enough discount because you're paying for your membership. If it was like 50% off or something, heck yeah. But like a $200 course for a member becomes like $175. And to me, that's like, I'm not going to pay for a membership just to save $25 on a course. I'm not evening out here. Like, this is not helpful. So I don't know about the EFA. I've thought about trying it. Maybe one of these days I'll get on there and see what I think about it for myself, if for no other reason than to be able to tell other people what it's like, because that's how I am. I like to experience things just to tell other people what I think about it. Let's see, did I miss any questions? I don't think I have. Does anyone have any last thoughts? This lemonade got really sour. How is it possible for lemonade to just suddenly get sour from just sitting? Mm. All right, I'm gonna give you guys a few more seconds just in case somebody's typing something. I'm gonna look over these comments and see if I missed anything else. I hope it wasn't like really bad feed the entire time. That would suck, but at least you can go back and watch it. I love, Leighton, how you said I haven't dissuaded you yet. Good. That's how you know you got the drive. I'm going to be doing these every Thursday. Oh, I'm glad it didn't lag after a while and then it got better. Thank you guys for sticking with me through the whole thing. This has been a rich, longer journey than anticipated, but that was the whole reason why I didn't want to do Zoom, because I don't have experience with doing like back-to-back Zoom, and I didn't know how disruptive that would be, and I knew we'd be talking for longer than 40 minutes, but I'm doing these every Thursday right now. So if you signed up, because I don't remember the list off the top of my head, so I don't remember if you signed up, Michelle, but I have the emails from everybody that signed up, and I'll send out a hopefully if the server's back up on WebEx, we can meet up there. If not, I guess we'll still be here. But about 2 days out, so like on Tuesday is when I try to remind everybody that we're going to be hanging out. So yeah, next Thursday, same time, 8 o'clock. What am I talking about then? I can't remember. Let me look. We're going to be talking about first steps. Yeah, how to get started. You're welcome, Leighton. I keep like rolling your name together. I don't know if you say it that way. Leighton, like Peyton. I love the name Peyton. Leighton's cool too. So for you guys, yeah, sounds great to me too. So for everyone that was here and hanging out and wants to be back next Thursday for me to continue talking and blabbering around, first steps. If you think you are suited for all of this, we'll figure out where to go from here and how to start planning out how to actually get your feet on the ground. So it was great talking to everybody. I will see you next time, and I will leave my email in the description. So, gosh, you can also find me like on Twitter. You get my information to my site and everything is in my bio. So I know you guys know how to find me. But if you have any more questions or if you need more information or something I said you forgot, just send me a message or email me and I'll get to you. So you're welcome. See you next time.